Welcome to my YouTube channel at Sci-Fi Tales Pools. Please subscribe, like, and share to support my channel. The sun was setting over the tall towers of the kingdom of Alvernia. Queen Alara stood at the balcony, her hands resting on the cold stone rail. The golden light touched her crown, but her eyes were filled with sorrow. Many years ago, she had lost her daughter Lydia. On that day, raiders had stormed the outer villages, and in the chaos, the young girl had been taken. No one ever brought her back, and with each year that passed, the queen's heart grew heavier. She ruled her people with strength, but behind the walls of her chambers, silence and sadness were her constant companions. The people still whispered about the missing princess. Some believed she had perished long ago. Others told stories that she was alive, hidden somewhere beyond the stars. Queen Alara never stopped hoping, but the years of waiting turned her hope into pain. Far away, Captain Nathan Cole prepared for a new mission. He was not a man who sought glory. His life had been built on discipline and quiet duty. He had fought many battles, and each left him more reserved. Yet when word reached him that a young woman matching the lost princess's description was seen in a hostile colony, something in his heart stirred. He remembered seeing Queen Alara once, long ago, after a council meeting. She had spoken little, but her sadness was clear even then. Nathan studied the report again and again. The details were uncertain, but he could not ignore them. If there was even a chance that the girl was Lydia, he felt bound to act. He knew the dangers. The colony was guarded and known for cruelty. No one entered it without risk. But the thought of a daughter stolen from her mother's arms was stronger than fear. He walked through the hangar where his ship rested, its metal surface marked from old battles. Its pilot, Daniel Hawkins, looked up with a questioning smile. His engineer, Claire Dawson, stood ready by the tools. Both trusted him without hesitation. Nathan gave them a quiet nod. They knew the mission was dangerous, but they also knew why it mattered. The engines roared to life. The ship lifted into the night sky, carrying with it a single promise: to find the lost daughter and bring her home. The ship moved through the dark sky, leaving the kingdom far behind. Inside, Captain Nathan Cole sat in silence, watching the stars stretch across the window. His thoughts were heavy, not with fear, but with the memory of the queen's sorrow. I'd never spoken with her closely, yet he remembered the way her eyes had looked, as if a part of her soul had been taken away. He carried that image with him like a weight. Daniel Hawkins guided the ship with steady hands. He was younger than Nathan, full of quiet humor, but he respected the captain too much to speak now. The silence inside the ship was broken only by the hum of the engines. Claire Dawson checked her tools and adjusted the ship's systems. She was sharp and practical, but her heart was kind. She understood that this mission was not only about duty, but about something deeper. After hours of travel, Nathan gathered them in the small control room. He spread the report across the table, showing them the location of the hostile colony. His voice was calm but firm. He explained that the girl they might find could be the queen's daughter. Claire and Daniel listened closely. Neither questioned the risk. They both knew what the rescue would mean, not just to the queen, but to the whole kingdom. The journey ahead was dangerous. The colony was known for its cruel rulers and guarded walls. Many who entered never returned. Yet the thought of leaving the girl behind was impossible. Nathan's eyes met his crew's, and in that moment, a silent bond was formed. They were not only warriors or travelers, they were people carrying the hope of a mother who had waited too long. Days passed as they crossed distant routes. Enemy patrols moved in the shadows, forcing Daniel to make sharp turns through narrow star paths. Claire worked without rest, repairing damage from near collisions and tuning the shields. Nathan remained watchful, his mind always fixed on the thought of the girl. Was she alive? Was she waiting for help that never came? Finally, the hostile colony appeared in the distance, its towers rising like cold steel against the stars. The crew stared at the sight in silence. The time for doubt had passed. Nathan stood, his voice low but steady. They would go in, and they would not leave without the girl. The ship touched down on the edge of the colony, its engine silent as it settled on the rough ground. Nathan Cole moved first, his steps careful and steady. Daniel Hawkins followed close behind, checking the path ahead, while Claire Dawson stayed near the back, her hand resting on the small scanner she carried. The air was heavy, and the walls of the colony rose high, sharp against the night sky. They slipped through shadows, moving between broken streets and rusted gates. Guards walked above on platforms, their weapons shining in the faint light. Every step forward was a test of silence and courage. Nathan kept his focus clear, his eyes searching for the tower where the girl was said to be held. Inside one of the buildings, Lydia sat alone in a small, cold room. Her hands were bruised from hard labor, her face pale from years of captivity. She often closed her eyes and tried to remember her mother's voice. It was the only thing that kept her spirit alive. She did not believe anyone would come for her, yet deep in her heart, she still held a small hope. The team reached the base of the tower. Nathan gave a signal, and Daniel moved to disable the outer lock. Sparks flew as Claire worked quickly to bypass the system. The gate opened with a soft hiss, and they slipped inside. The halls were dim, lined with steel doors and harsh lights. Voices echoed from above, but they kept moving forward. When they reached the chamber, Nathan stopped. Behind the bars sat a young woman, her eyes wide with fear. For a moment, she did not move. She thought it was another cruel trick. Nathan stepped closer, his voice calm and steady. He told her they had come to take her home. Lydia's lips trembled as tears filled her eyes. She whispered her name as if afraid to believe. Nathan nodded once and broke the lock with a firm strike. The door opened, and he reached out his hand. Slowly, she placed her hand in his. For the first time in years, she felt the touch of safety. Alarms suddenly rang through the building. Guards shouted from the corridors. The rescue was not over. The alarms grew louder as red lights flashed across the tower walls. Nathan Cole pulled Lydia close and motioned for Claire and Daniel to move fast. Now the hallway filled with the sound of running boots as guards closed in from every side. Claire held her scanner high and forced open a side door, leading them into a narrow passage. Daniel fired a short burst from his weapon to hold the guards back, then ran after the others. The passage was dark and full of dust, but it gave them cover. Nathan kept Lydia in front of him, guiding her forward with steady hands. She stumbled, weak from years of captivity, but she kept moving. The hope of freedom pushed her on. They reached the outer gates, but heavy locks sealed them shut. Claire dropped to her knees, tools moving quickly as she worked on the mechanism. Sweat rolled down her face as sparks flew. Daniel stood ready, his eyes fixed on the corner where the enemy was gathering. Nathan kept his calm, whispering to Lydia that she would see her mother again. Her tears fell, but her steps did not falter. At last, the gate opened, creaking wide. They rushed outside, only to face a line of guards waiting in the yard. Shots rang out, sharp and bright in the night. Daniel covered the left side, while Nathan shielded Lydia. Claire threw a flash device that filled the air with blinding light. In the confusion, they dashed across the open ground toward the shadows of the old streets. The sound of engines roared overhead. Enemy ships began to rise, their lights sweeping across the colony. Nathan pushed the group into a broken alley, where the enemy could not see them. Daniel led the way, guiding them through paths that twisted like a maze. Claire checked the scanner and found the fastest route back to their own ship. Finally, after what felt like endless running, the dark shape of their vessel appeared on the horizon. Relief showed on Lydia's face, though fear still lingered. Nathan looked at her and spoke with firm courage. He told her she was no longer alone. She nodded, her hand gripping his arm. Behind them, the colony roared with chaos, but ahead stood the ship that promised escape.
The ship soared through the night sky, leaving the colony far behind. Lydia sat quietly near the window, her hands trembling as she watched the stars pass. Nathan Cole stood nearby, his eyes fixed on the path ahead. Daniel Hawkins piloted the ship with steady focus, while Claire Dawsey checked the engines to keep them running strong. No one spoke much, but every heart carried the same thought. They were going home. Nathan looked at Lydia, and she met his gaze. Her voice was soft as she asked if her mother still waited for her. Nathan nodded without doubt. He told her the Queen had never stopped believing, even when the years turned long and heavy. Lydia held her arms close, tears falling, as she whispered that she could almost hear her mother's voice. Hours later, the ship crossed into safe space. Alvernia's towers rose in the distance, bright under the light of dawn. The closer they came, the more the weight of sorrow seemed to lift. Lydia's eyes widened at the sight. For so long, she thought she would never see her home again, yet now the walls and gates stood before her. The ship landed inside the royal courtyard. Crowds gathered quickly, their voices filled with wonder as they saw who stepped out. Queen Alara moved forward from the palace steps, her hands shaking, her face pale with hope. For a moment she could not move, afraid it might be a dream. Then she saw the young woman walking toward her, guided gently by Nathan. Time seemed to stop. Lydia called out one word, her voice breaking. The queen ran forward, her arms opening wide. Mother and daughter fell into each other's embrace, tears streaming down their faces. The courtyard filled with the sound of joy, the people crying out as they witnessed the miracle. Nathan stood back, watching with quiet respect. He bowed his head slightly, unwilling to take glory. To him, the reunion itself was reward enough. Daniel and Claire stood beside him, proud yet humble. The queen looked at Nathan through her tears and whispered words of thanks that came from her soul. The people cheered, not only for the return of the princess, but for the courage of the warrior who had carried hope across the stars. For the first time in many years, peace filled the kingdom once more. Thank you for watching and being part of our community.